It was a very random decision to go inside the campus of my college alma mater, but it was a holiday and the guards let me in, so I decided to take a walk around and vlog it. This is where I graduated from college. This is the Ateneo de Naga University, and no one else is here except for the security guards and the maintenance people. So let's take a walk around the campus. It's not going to take long because it's a very small campus. Over here we have Santos Hall. It's an old building that's been there since, like, I don't know, the 80s or 70s. But Xavier Hall is relatively new. It's been there only for, I think, 20 years. And that is a marker for the new theater that is going to be put up, and that's also where the university bookstore is. But let me start the walking tour on the other side of the campus opposite Xavier Hall. There is Xavier Hall because this end looks a little bit more deserted because it has the older buildings in it, so I wanted to start here. The campus was extremely quiet, well, because it's deserted, and the only sounds we could hear is the occasional people, like maintenance people, doing some cleaning stuff. So there's really no sound to put on here. But this is the side of Burns Hall. It's named after Father Burns, one of the Jesuit priests that used to work and teach here in this exact university. And there are some old things just placed in a pile over there. I have no idea what plans they have for that. And then near the end of Burns Hall, there is a narrow walkway that connects Burns to the other buildings. But look at this tree right here. It is very, very old. I remember it has always been there. And that concrete seating area around it has always been there as well. Here is another very old tree with concrete seating around here. I remember we used to spend a lot of time during break times with friends and classmates under these trees. It has been raining, so some parts are muddy, but that is the back side of the four pillars, the entrance to the university that I showed you at the beginning of the video. And from that area are two crisscrossing walkways that lead to the other parts of the campus. But look at that really, really beautiful tree over there. That is very, very old. Now, these walkways didn't used to be here, but they have been here for about over 2 decades now. But when I was in college, they were not here yet. And I'm glad that even though they changed the landscape of the campus and put in more buildings, I'm glad that they didn't really cut down any of those trees. And here at the center, we have the monument or the statue of Saint Ignatius of Loyola. And beyond that statue is an open clearing. It's a paved clearing, and we can see there the Adriatica Hall that has been there since the 1990s. When I was attending my classes for Master in Business Administration, that's where most of our classes were held. And then if we go across the middle of Adriatica Hall, we come across the Dolan Hall. This was built when I was in college, and it's named after Father Francis Dolan. He was also a Jesuit priest who used to teach and work in the campus, and this building was built and named after him when he was still alive. So he was joking that he wasn't sure whether to be sad or happy, because usually people named buildings after people who were already dead. He's a really funny guy. Dolan Hall is located right next to Phelan Hall. And Phelan Hall is another building that was named after a Jesuit priest who used to live and work there, Father John Phelan, and this is the building. Father John Phelan is actually a close friend of my dad. My dad also got his college degree from this university. And this is really just Phelan Hall. It's a very long, thin building, and the hallways are empty. Um, Most of these buildings have about 3 stories, but we are just going to walk on the first floor of everything because I'm not sure if I'm allowed to go onto the higher floors. Parallel to Phelan Hall is this large old building right here on the right of the video, and that is Santos Hall. And this has been here for much longer than the others. And in the style of the time in which it was made, the hallways are very, very wide and they're very dark. Um, it has red cement floors. It's very 1970s. And in the 80s and 90s, Santos Hall used to be the classrooms of all the high school students. But now the university has a separate campus for junior high school. Only the senior high school students study in this particular campus, but for the first 4 years of high school, which is junior high, everybody is at another campus. On the third floor of Santos Hall, I remember, is the old chemistry lab. It's a very large, very dark, very brooding room full of test tubes and Bunsen burners. And I had to take chemistry for one entire summer because I failed it during the regular semester because I wasn't attending classes at all. So I was in that chemistry lab every single day for one entire summer with about 4 more people who also failed the regular chemistry class. And this is fairly new. It's called the Ignaciana Hall 2017, and those are administrative offices over there. And here is the main building. This is actually the back of the 4 pillars that I showed at the beginning of the video, and there's a maintenance room right there. We call this the wooden building, and there used to be a row of classrooms here on this particular wing. We called it the main left, or the ML. And over here, as we walk along, you are going to figure out where we actually are in the bigger scheme of things in this particular campus. And over there, you can see the St. Ignatius of Loyola statue, and here we have the backside of the 4 pillars that I showed you at the beginning of this video. And here are the rows of windows for paying tuition. These are the treasurer's offices, and that's where people pay their tuition. And here are some other windows for special cases when transacting with the treasurer's office. And here is the other side of the wing. This is the main right, or the MR building, and that's exactly the mirror image of how the ML used to be. Those are classrooms right there. And I remember when we had classes there at 5:30 in the afternoon until the evening, there were bats flying across the entire classroom. And that area right there is where the assembly hall used to be. The assembly hall was simply a large covered court with benches and tables, and people gathered there during break times. And that was also the meeting place for all school organizations and pretty much everyone else. There used to be a small canteen over there, and we got food and then we just hung out. And there is one maintenance dude over there. And at the end of the wooden building, and there is a second floor to this one, by the way, and the stairwell that leads to the second floor is still the old original one. And right beside the wooden building, we are back at Burns Hall. During the beginning of this video, we were walking along the side of Burns Hall, but now we are inside Burns Hall. As you can see, it has a similar look and feel as with Santos Hall. the very wide and very dark hallways. Burns Hall also used to be classrooms for the old high school before they transferred to the other campus. But before, in the 80s, and I think during the 90s, if I remember it correctly, Burns Hall also housed the old library. That was before the university built the O'Brien Library that is now located near the statue of St. Ignatius of Loyola. So Burns Hall is where everybody went if they needed to go to the library. And here we are already approaching the end of Burns Hall, and that would be a new building that I am actually not familiar with because I don't know if I have been here before. It looks to be like a multi-purpose hall of some kind with small offices appended to it, but there it is located in the context of the campus map. But from Burns Hall, there is this small opening towards the back, and we are going to use that walkway. This is just, I think this is the place where they have the nurseries for plants. Yeah, I think this is it. There is this metal walkway. This is just a makeshift walkway because I can imagine that when it rains, this area can get really, really flooded. And yes, I remembered it correctly. This is where they have the nurseries for certain plants because the campus also has an office for environmental concerns, and they have some activities and they have some advocacies here that that particular office takes care of. And I just noticed that in this particular walkway there are these worms. Some of them seem to have already died, but a bunch of them are still alive. I have no idea what these worms are. I can imagine that if they land on your skin, they can cause a lot of itching. So I didn't really stay there too long. And now here we are finally in the Ateneo Chapel. This is fairly new. I think this is only around 25 years old, and it has a particular design, and it's not very big. It's really just a school chapel, but it's such a big improvement from the old one. The old chapel used to be at the opposite side of the treasurer's office in the main building. It was really, really small. It was actually where my parents were married, but now there's this chapel right here. It's much, much bigger, and over here I'm just showing you the design of it. That's the ceiling, and then around we have these stained glass windows, and they go all around both sides of the chapel. And beneath them, if you can see those small framed artworks, those are for the stations of the cross that Roman Catholics observe during certain times of the year. And here we have a confessional. And stepping out on the other side of the chapel, we have a small garden. And over there, we can see a Pieta. I think this is the Pieta statue. That is the Virgin Mary holding the body of the dead Christ after he has been taken down from the cross. And the statue is surrounded by wooden seats, and people can have their prayers here. And then we have just really this small, rather rough garden um, with stone walkways scattered all over. And look at these little, I think these are swans. I am not sure. So that's really it. This is the side of the chapel, and there is the chapel, and beyond that side there is Burns Hall. And now we are walking. See, you have the Burns Hall over there, and then we have the Savior Hall over there. And then finally, we are right back in the same spot where we started. That is the four pillars of the Ateneo de Naga. I honestly have never seen my college alma mater this deserted before. In my entire life, I have always seen it as full of people, so it was quite an experience for me to see it this way. Well, I hope you had fun with me. Thanks for watching. Bye!